Good morning and welcome to everyone present in the chamber and to those listening online to the Business of the Environment and Economy Scrutiny Committee. I am Councillor Ian Carrington, I'm Chairman of this committee, and Councillor Martin Griggs, Vice Chairman, is also in presence. A few housekeeping notes before we formally begin. Can I remind you please that the audio-visual feed of this formal public meeting is being broadcast live via the County Council's websites, and all your comments will remain accessible online as the meeting recording remains on the Council's website. There's no fire drill planned for this morning, so in the event of the fire alarm sounding, we will need to leave the Council chamber through the rear doors, that's the ones at that end of the building, and assemble in the front car park to await further instructions. I also request everyone present to ensure that your mobiles, laptops, iPads, and any other kind of device are on silent for the duration of the meeting, and the hearing loop is now activated. If anybody needs any equipment, please show. I'm seeing no one, but that is there should anybody need it in the course of the meeting. Request to speak will be collated by Councillor Martin Griggs. We will try and ensure that everyone has the opportunity to ask questions and make contributions, but I will close down the debate to ensure we keep time should that be necessary. So, could we please all keep our contributions as succinct and concise as possible, and can I also ask you to indicate early when you wish to speak. So we can now move to the formal agenda, and we begin with item 1, apologies for absence and replacement members, and I turn to our Democratic Services Officer, Jess Wasser-Yates. Jess.
Thank you, Chairman. Today we've received apologies from Councillor Mrs Austin.
Thank you very much indeed. Item 2, declaration of members' interests. This is an opportunity for members to declare any pecuniary or other interests. Do any members have an interest to declare? I'm looking around the room and seeing none. As ever, if an interest occurs to you in the course of the meeting, simply catch the chairman or the vice chairman's eye and make the declaration at that time. Moving to item 3, therefore, minutes of the meeting held on the 16th of January 2024. The item is to approve and sign the minutes of the last meeting as a correct record. They are available in pages 5 to 10 of your agenda pack. I will not go through them page by page. I will ask if any member has any comments on those meetings or any corrections they would seek to make. Seeing none, I therefore seek a proposer for the minutes. The Vice Chairman, thank you, Councillor Griggs, seconded by Councillor Linda Wootton. I will sign those at the end of the meeting. They are agreed as a correct record. Item 4, announcements by the Chairman, Executive Councillors and Lead Officers. As far as Chairman's announcements are concerned, I would like to thank Councillor Griggs. As colleagues know, due to COVID, I was unable to attend the last meeting, and I thank very much Councillor Griggs for excellently chairing it in my absence. I'd also like to take a moment to reflect on some of the latest news since that previous meeting. In relation to our economic scrutiny remit, I would like to welcome the decisions on the final budget and tax proposals recommended by the Executive, and they were approved last Friday by full Council in this chamber. So we now have clarity going forward for the next year on that. And secondly, I would like to take the opportunity, and I don't think he's in the chamber with us this morning, to thank Mike Reid, our former head of Waste, for his support for this committee throughout the past few years, and to wish him the very best in his role as head of transport at this council. Which brings me to my next point, which is to welcome Chrissy Austin, who's in the chamber with us this morning, who has now taken over as head of waste. And lastly, or actually second to last, on the last item on today's agenda involves consideration of exempt information. So in terms of today's running order, what we will do is get to the point where we have to take the resolution, and we will then take a 10-minute break, which will allow Democratic Services to close the stream and prepare for that exempt conclusion. And the final point I just wanted to put in, I know that issues relating to flooding, and of course we have an inquiry being carried out by the Flood and Water Management Committee in its statutory role, but events relating to flooding are quite properly very much front of mind for this committee, which is after all the Environment and Economic Committee, and it was the environment which has bitten back several times in the course of this winter. Just to update members, I have taken on your behalf a very close interest in those matters. I've worked very closely with the Chairman of Flood and Water, and in fact that inquiry is being handled by a committee consisting of by a working group consisting of all the members of Flood and Water, including our colleagues from other authorities and bodies who are seconded to it, and me, really acting as your representative. And I know that they're working very hard on that, and that work will continue, and I will continue to keep this committee posted. Meetings of the Flood and Water Management Committee are, of course, streamed online, and they're open to all members to join. They're doing some very hard and very necessary work, and I just wanted to update members on that. So concluding, and before we move on, may I remind you that today's agenda is a rather busy one, and therefore could officers please ensure that when they present items, the reports should be taken as read. They are, of course, welcome to summarise the key messages and what is required by the committee. May I also remind members of the importance of keeping our questions and contributions succinct and concise. Moving on, Executive Councillor announcements. Do we have any announcements by Councillor Colin Davey, Executive Councillor for Economic Development, Environment and Planning, who normally attends via Teams, or his supporting councillor? I think we have Councillor Davey online. Good morning, Colin.
Good morning, Chairman, and good morning to all members of the committee. You will be pleased to hear I'm keeping my announcements very short this morning, since we had a full council on Friday and there was an extensive report in the pack relating to the portfolio I look after. I'd just like to start by reflecting on the news of the passing of Lord Cormac. Now, Lord Cormac was a particularly strong voice for this county and particularly for the city of Lincoln. I worked with him closely over many years, and he was one of the great campaigners against proposals at Nocton Fen for a giant wind farm there because of its impact on the long-distance views of the city of Lincoln. I was particularly pleased to work with him in the development of Lincoln Castle and the work in the city, which myself and my colleague at the time, Councillor Nick Worth, were handling. Lincolnshire County Council, of course, used the work at the castle as a launch pad for other visitor economy projects. And I'm pleased to see that Mary Powell will be providing you with an update today on this priority sector for Lincolnshire. I note you have other items to discuss focusing on internationalism and inward investment, both essential to the successful growth of our economy in this county. We see a range of sectors locating and growing in the county of Lincolnshire. I'm also pleased to share with you an event to be held on Friday the 8th of March, which is our manufacturing conference at the Lawn in Lincoln. As ever, our manufacturing conference aims to address the sector challenges and provide valuable insights to propel your manufacturing businesses forward. The day will have three main themes: workforce challenge, artificial intelligence in manufacturing, and sustainability in manufacturing. The event is only open to manufacturers across Greater Lincolnshire and Rutland, and places can be booked via the Business Lincolnshire website. Delegates will have a chance to join a free tour of Stokes at the end of the conference, who are kindly opening their doors for a behind-the-scenes look at the production facilities. And finally, I would just mention, since you raised the issue of environment, Chairman, the Environment Agency has now published its report into its role in relation to the storm Babette's flooding in Horncastle, and that is available on the Horncastle Town Council website for members to look at. So I'll leave it there, and I'll happily pick up any questions you or the members wish to raise with me.
Thank you very much indeed. I'm looking around the chamber now. Does any member have a question for Councillor Davey? I'm not seeing any questions coming in your direction from the floor, Colin. Can I raise something which we've discussed before, and it's a more general economic point? And it's really about what we might see as a tension in the kind of indicators we're getting at the moment. Now, we know that there are some people who are finding, particularly when inflation was a little higher than it is now, issues with cost of living. And this council can be justifiably proud of the work that it is doing to alleviate that, as can our colleagues at the district level. But at the same time, we're getting economic indicators such as quite high levels of very discretionary personal spending, and also on a macro level, we're looking at indicators with a very, very tight labour market, particularly in areas like skilled engineering or indeed agricultural workers. And there seems to be a tension between the two of those. I wonder whether you could comment on how you see that and how the County Council may play a role in taking us forward.
Thank you very much, Chairman. As you know, I read a lot of international papers on economy, and I like to follow what's going on in what I consider the stuff we don't see. And I think we are certainly in a challenging situation still. I think there is a real challenge, particularly still around energy costs, which, you know, we see big corporations making huge profits. And prices at wholesale level have fallen, but they're not reflected in what's being charged to consumers and businesses. So there's a real challenge around that. I think the cost of living crisis is still there. I think many people have now spent all the money they saved over the lockdown period, and they're now struggling. You know, what we really need to do is we need to see some real measures in the budget next week that are going to help alleviate problems. And these are much more acute in rural areas of England than they are in big cities. We have this labour crisis, as you know, in terms of workforce, and I can't see that easing any day soon. We have far too many people who are living on benefits, really, rather than working. And we need to get about 5 million people back into work, quite honestly. So I think there are some real challenges. This is going to be a difficult year. I think it'll be a difficult year for tourism, which is why I've campaigned consistently for a cut in VAT. We need to make our tourism sector as competitive as those sectors are in Europe. And government needs to hear these messages, and they need to start taking action. We can only hope that we have a good budget next week and that some of these measures will be brought into play. However, I fear that we may still have a very challenging year ahead. Though that is not to say that there isn't optimism out there. And many businesses are optimistic about their long-term future, and they see this as a challenging period to get through rather than one that will end their businesses. So I think that is a hopeful side in consideration. And we need as a council to work closely and continue to work closely, not just with businesses, but with communities and with all our residents to ensure we're hearing their messages and we're reacting accordingly. Hope that helps, Chairman.
It does indeed. Thank you very much indeed for that, Colin. And if you're able to, do stay with us online. We also have Councillor McNally with us in the chamber. Do you have any comments to make at this stage, Councillor McNally? In that case, we will move forward. We have a question from Councillor Baxter. Good morning, Councillor Baxter.
Thank you. A question for Councillor Davey. He mentioned that we need to get 5 million people back into work. Where are these 5 million people?
Councillor Davey.
They're the ones currently sitting on the benefit system, Councillor Baxter, which you know for a while. That is a national database. It's about 4.9 something million the people who are economically inactive, that could be economically active, and we need to encourage them to be so. But you know, there is a real tension in our country right now around labour and who's going to supply the workforce of the future. We need to get some clarity from central government about how we're going to address these big challenges and how AI and robotics and all these things are going to contribute to a stronger, more vital, more viable economy in the future. These are big challenges and big questions, probably outside of all of our pay grade remits. Central government needs to start coming up with some long-term sustainable answers for how our country is going to look in 2050 and onwards.
Thank you very much, Councillor Davey. I turn now to seeing no further member comment. I turn now to senior officers. Are there any announcements from senior officers? I'm seeing a general shaking of heads, so we can now move on to the next item on the agenda, which is Visitor Economy Update. This report can be found on pages 11 to 18 of the agenda pack, and the report outlines what's been a challenging year, past and to come, for the visitor economy business, marked by adverse weather, economic difficulties, staff shortages and reduced opening hours. Now, despite these challenges, the Council has demonstrated strategic leadership by supporting the sector through initiatives such as visitlincolnshire.com and other measures. Additional efforts include providing direct support, implementing development programmes and employing tools to enhance the overall visitor experience. The primary strategic objective remains focused on increasing the count of higher spending overnight visitors to the county. The actions before us this morning are: we are asked, 1, to note the achievements of the revitalised visitlincolnshire.com website; 2, to consider the proposed objectives for the strategic plan for the visitor economy in Lincolnshire; 3, to endorse our support for the local visitor economy partnership and our role within it; and 4, to advise on how we can encourage more of the local population to engage with the website. And that report is going to be presented by Mary Powell, Place and Investment Manager. Helen Toyne, Visitor and Economy Growth Manager, is also present for this item, and we'll take questions after the report briefing. So, Mary, over to you.
Thank you, Chairman. As you say, if it wasn't the weather, it was the economy, and it was a very difficult year in 2023. I don't think Lincolnshire was any different to any other part of the country, and colleagues around the country have reported exactly the same. In many ways, visitors have come, but they don't spend. They are very careful with their money, and I think every indication is that 2024 will be similar. I do expect that visitors will come, but I think they will still be extremely careful with their spend. So it sort of has an uneven hit. So accommodation may still be taking bookings, but whether that sort of secondary spend is happening is much more challenging. I think that we've been doing everything we can to support the visitor sector. My colleague Hayley Toyne, sat next to me, is able to do sort of one-to-one business support with tourism businesses to help them sort of with their business planning. The investment that we've made through the Tourism Commission in visitlincolnshire.com is really paying dividends. We feel we're very proud of it. We've got a lot of plans for 2024 of new content, because you can't stand still with a website. You need to be constantly developing it, and we've got a lot of plans. And the one figure that I would like to draw members' attention to is the 19.3% clicking through to bookings. That's, by an industry standard, is quite a high figure. What that means is that the visitors who are coming on the website are finding what they want and are going on to do something, usually a booking. It may be they might be downloading a walk or a map, but mostly it's bookings. And some additional figures that I've only had really quite recently is that figure for places like Kinema in the Woods, 37% linked to bookings. Butlins, 60%. Tattershall Lakes, 30%. And that's, to me, really powerful in that it's saying that the website works. It's delivering business, which is what it's there for. So it's something that we feel we've got to build on. I'm very happy to take questions. Won't repeat the paper. Okay.
Thank you very much indeed for that. And just on that last comment you made, it's a theme of this committee in the time that I've served on it, the role that local government can play in facilitating the development and sustainable growth of private sector businesses of all types. So thank you very much for that summary. Thank you very much indeed to all concerned in it for a very comprehensive report. Members, questions? Councillor Taylor, start with you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the officer for that presentation. Much appreciated. Pleased to hear that. And part of the recommendations is to note the achievements. We clearly do that. Regarding the corporate plan, great to hear that line regarding champion Lincolnshire as a destination of choice. I believe we should use that phrase more. We should all use that phrase and keep repeating that, so we all start to use that phrase automatically, a destination of choice. It's a strapline, a slogan we should use more of, and that can start to be positive as itself. We know in the earlier report we heard regarding comments regarding cost of living, that clearly is still a challenge. We know there's a hope regarding the reduction in energy prices coming this way this year. But we also know that there are some hopeful and positive, such as bus fares. That cap at £2 has been extended till this year. That does allow tourists and local people to use public transport where it exists. We know it's not everywhere, but it does exist in some places, to attend some events. And there are some free events, free to attend events, which are paid for by advertising or community volunteers. So they do exist in the county. Also, we know often after the experience, 1 year, people do return a year later. They return visitors. We know particularly last year in Spalding, when the Flare Parade returned after a 10-year absence, very successful. It's on again this year, a 2-week in May. I'll get that plug in there. But that also led to some free TV advertising. I think it's a Channel 4 programme, quite a bit on the local media, which also included other parts of Lincolnshire. So there's a question now, do we use those local media or national media contacts to try and use that as an opportunity for free publicity to promote Lincolnshire as that destination of choice? Do we use that, or if not, could we do that more? Thank you.
I think you're absolutely right. It is about accentuating the positives, and I think we all need to do that. We actually put a lot of effort into attracting journalists to come to the county, and we've had a lot of success in the last, over the years. But we continue to host all manner of visitors from all manner of papers and magazines. So that is very important to us. But I think it is important to turn things round. You know, the things that you can do for free, the things that that are very good value, and the positives of a visit. And we're doing a lot of work this coming year on segmenting how we present Lincolnshire. So how we present Lincolnshire to families with small children, or how we present it to older couples, or so we're being much more focused on what we do.
Thank you very much. Turning now to Councillor Fleetwood.
Thank you, Chairman. You nearly took me off guard there. You looked at me in the other direction. It's good to see Mary in the chamber, and long time no see, but as always with Mary's projects, this one seems to be going very, very well. I travel the length and breadth of the UK for various purposes, and one of the things I do when I go into an area is I'll look at websites, and I'm very website savvy, always have been, to look and see what there is. And I think this website that we basically push forward as a county council is excellent, and it shows Lincolnshire in a very good light. Having said all that, I'm now going to put the little twist in and give you the curveball. A few years ago, Mary was involved in the Lincoln to Boston cycle, the water railway, and the surface of that is breaking up. So whilst I see that under nature tourism and walking, cycling, we are very big promoters, I have a problem with regard to who I might go to with regard to getting some support to get that surface move forwards, because the contacts are difficult to get hold of. Having said that, all of that, I'm sure that somebody in the room that can pick up on it. We've got a variety of officers here, so it might not be one for Mary to answer. All I will say is that, you know, as far as the website and as far as the promotion of Lincolnshire goes, we're moving from strength to strength, and it's getting better. And, you know, I don't see a finite conclusion to it, because I consider that this project will continue to excel.
Mary, we have an absolute wealth of officers in the room this morning. Would you like to pick up Councillor Fleetwood's question, or would you like to nominate somebody?
I could see that coming. Thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor Fleetwood. Yes, so the water railway is predominantly a Sustrans related route. I'll take that back to them. We have a meeting coming up in the near future with a couple of their officers. We have mentioned it to them before, and I'll push the point again.
Thank you very much for that. We now move to the Vice Chairman, Councillor Griggs.
Thank you very much. I was quite critical, Mary, last time you came, I don't know if you remember, but about the website itself. But a 20% conversion rate is absolutely fantastic, so keep doing a great job. It'd be interesting if we had, and I'm sure you possibly do, but didn't want to overload the report with data, it'd be interesting to see if out of the 1.2 million views on the website, how many of those were local or not. Because I would imagine many people like myself go, oh, we'll go to Skeg for the day, take the kids to the beach. And obviously that doesn't encourage much spending. It's sustained visitors account for 55% of the economic impact and 15% of the total visitor numbers. So I think it'd be really interesting to see the breakdown of how many people outside of Lincolnshire are looking at the Visit Lincolnshire website, and that potentially could give us some strategies moving forward, focus on other areas of the UK to target market, because it is really important that they come and stay, and if they're staying and not going home at the end of the day, they've got to buy all their food, they're more inclined to spend in the local economy, and that can be great for jobs and growth. But really well done on the website, Mary.
I can get those figures for you, and we do have them as part of the analytics for the site. I can't remember what the bits I picked out, but I don't think I did pick that one out. And it does show that Lincoln and Lincolnshire people do use the site very, very much, but certainly not dominated by local people. So we have figures for the county, for adjoining counties, further afield, the London area. I mean, the London area is very strong and getting stronger. It used to be about equal with the Lincolnshire people looking at the site. It's now vastly overtaken them. The thing that we found that during lockdown when we started the site, we didn't major on events for kind of obvious reasons, there weren't any. So we've put that on now, and it's a big driver of traffic for us now. And what I want to do, I think we can do better on when people are actually here. So they're using it to plan their visit, which is great, but I also want them to use it when they're here to make sure that they're getting it, because it's a big county, and that often throws people. So these are the things, it's almost the fine-tuning and the Google Analytics that we get with the site, which are extensive, kind of give us that background that we can realise where we're doing well, but also where we could do better. But I will get those figures for you.
Yeah, before moving to our next question, can I just endorse Councillor Griggs' point? Please don't be shy in future reports about going into quite a granular level of data. In addition to the geographic data that Councillor Griggs has talked about, I think it would be really interesting to understand. You talked about a 30-odd% click-through rate and a very positive response in terms of bookings. And I very much endorsed your point about segmentation, both segmentation research and then translating that into active marketing. It would be really interesting to start to look, as I'm sure you do, and to expose to the committee, the relationship between people clicking through and booking and the kind of activity band that they fall into, the kind of value that they represent as visitors. To use cold marketing terms, what we're talking about here boils down ultimately to transaction value. As well as the volume of transactions. We have high volumes here, but on average, lower transaction values. And that's what we're really trying to drive. So more granular data coming to this committee would be very much appreciated. I know there's always a pressure, don't make your reports too long, don't be shy about that. We would very much like to have that data. Councillor Baxter, you've been waiting patiently, over to you.
I've got one question and then perhaps a volley, but the first question is actions required, number 2, to consider the proposed objectives for the strategic plan for the visitor economy in Lincolnshire. Where are these? I can't find them in the pack.
Mary.
I think that refers to the destination management plan that's being prepared at the moment, which actually isn't, but by the LVEP, but which actually isn't quite complete as yet. Is that right, Justin? Is that fair?
Let's just seek some clarification perhaps from our scrutiny officer. Are we slightly ahead of the game on that particular item, which is item 2 of our action list, the definition of what the strategic plan for visitor economy in Lincolnshire, which we are invited to support, but we are not necessarily identifying quite in that form. It may, we hear, perhaps be a work in progress. And if that is the case, should we perhaps not pursue item 2?
Yes, my
Guidance, please.
counsel would be, the way I interpreted it initially was that members were invited to contribute to that consideration, to that dialogue around objectives to be included and highlighted through the strategic plan for the visitor economy in Lincolnshire. However, should members feel that they do not have enough sufficient information before them to make any suggestions or endorse any objectives being proposed, then I would propose to remove it from the final motion. Thank you.
I think we can say good spot, Ashley, on that one. I think basically that I'll come to you in just 1 second. From where I am at the moment, perhaps we could say that we'll certainly capture members' comments and feed those in, but we are a scrutiny panel and therefore scrutinise what exists rather than what may. Justin, you wish to contribute from the floor.
Thank you. Yeah, so I think what we'll do is bring another paper next time to set this out very clearly, but the thread in the paper talks about the different strategic objectives around green tourism, around us providing support to businesses in the sector, around us supporting around employment, and around us promoting using the website. So I think everything is in there. The way it's described is what is causing the confusion, and to unpack that, we'll bring a short paper next time which sets out what our objectives for tourism are and therefore how we're seeking your endorsement.
That would be very helpful. Ashley, 15 love.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like you to know that I'm paying attention. And when you mention, Mr. Brown, green tourism, you mean nature tourism, which I think is a different thing, isn't it? Green tourism, I would think, would be people getting on the train with their bike and having a vegan lunch or something, whereas nature tourism is something else, which is described in here. So the other comments I wanted to make were to say I really like what's in the report, and it's very front of mind because I've had 2 meetings lately with Charlotte Goy and her colleagues from Destination Lincolnshire. The second one was yesterday with other kind of stakeholders in South Kesteven, including Belton House and Fullbeck Craft Centre and other people that are kind of trying to make the things stick together. And some of the things I learned was a kind of following up on what the Vice Chairman said in terms of people come to Lincolnshire and then they stay where they are and then they don't. So one of the statistics that Charlotte Goy gave me was, I think, something like £2.3 billion of tourist spend in Lincolnshire, of which about 30% was in Skeg Vegas, and that money stays there. People don't go to Skegness on holiday and then take a day trip to Belton House or to Lincoln or wherever. And so getting tourists to venture out from their caravan is one thing that we need to do. Obviously, the primary objective of a tourism strategy is to get more tourists and to get the tourists to do more, particularly spend more money. So I've no problem with that as an objective, and I think that's broadly in here. I really like the stuff about set jetting, film tourism, and I've been onto the website and it looks great. My question, I think, would be, to what extent are you working with Destination Lincolnshire about how does the dynamic work between Destination Lincolnshire and the county, who I guess are the webmaster of the site? I've mentioned one of the other things that was mentioned to me recently was most people visiting Lincolnshire are not on their first visit. People come again and again and again. Our struggle is to get people to come for the first time. So if you're in Warwickshire and you can get someone to go to Lincolnshire, then that's a struggle. And I also echo the points made earlier about active travel, getting people so the green tourism, I guess, getting people to come to Lincoln and then get on a bike or get on a narrow boat, would they do? I'm fascinated by the water railway. It sounds quite dangerous, but I'll have a conversation after the meeting, I guess. Thank you for your indulgence, Chair.
The water railway runs through my district ward as it happens, and you'd be very welcome to come along. Bring your bicycle. We'll show you that. Mary, would you like to come back on any of those? And before you do, can I just add something to the points made by Councillor Baxter? He and I, as colleagues, know it's not a pecuniary interest, but we are dual-hatted. He in South Kesteven, me in North Kesteven. We do have efforts being made on part of tourism by the district councils, very important ones. Perhaps you could just address the issue of ensuring that we are all able to work positively and harmoniously together. But please pick up first on Councillor Baxter's points.
Well, we do work very closely with Destination Lincolnshire and the districts. So when we went into lockdown, essentially the tourism officer group, which includes Destination Lincolnshire, we met every week because there was so much happening. That is, we are now meeting monthly, but that's when we kind of share everything that is happening, and there is a lot happening with a sort of lot of new funding and new projects being sort of put into training that we're able to give to make sure that we can share it and we are promoting it. So that is a vehicle which works, and it makes sure that we all know what's going on, and I think it has worked extremely well. So, for example, Hayley's going to be running some training on the England Coast Path, and we're working with the appropriate districts to deliver that. So I think that Charlotte at the Destination Lincolnshire, through setting up the LVEP, which has been an enormous amount of work, and working with Visit England to get it accredited, whilst we've been concentrating on the website. So I think there's a massive amount to do, and we don't need to be duplicating what each other is doing. It's horses for courses, I suppose, and we have been very much concentrating on the website and on business support. And on the green sort of nature tourism, I think I've been using the word nature tourism so that we can almost create an umbrella to put the walking, the cycling, the nature reserves, the bird watching, and the kind of measures that many businesses are putting in place to make their businesses greener. And we've been using an umbrella of nature tourism. Now, whether that's the right one or whether it should be a green, Justin and I spoke about it yesterday as to which was the most appropriate. But I take members' views on that, because I don't think it's necessarily that nature tourism is best. If you think green tourism is more accurately describes it.
If it's a question, Chair, I'd say they're two different things, and both very welcome. But you can have a green tourist experience without seeing any nature, so to speak.
Yeah, true.
Equally, you can drive your gas-guzzling vehicle to a nature reserve and watch birds and not be green at all.
Yeah, yeah. Accept that.
And can I just throw in one supplementary? I'm piggybacking off your questions here, actually, but just in terms of the website, do our partners have the ability to plug into that directly in terms of any content which they may wish to put forward? Because what we obviously don't want to see is a multiplicity of different websites all trying to achieve the same thing. And my second question, what relationship is there between the website and, which is obviously working, and we've heard about the click-through, and social media, the other on-screen thing, which is these days rather more dynamic than a website. A website may be somewhere where you go secondarily. For a lot of people, social media may be the first thing. So how do those two come together? So who gets access to the website? Will that always only be us? And secondly, the relationship with social media.
We are the gatekeepers of the website, and I think that's for sort of technical reasons and quality reasons. Is that if you have too many people adding and not doing it right or not fully trained, so if people want changes, they come to us, and we get changes made very, very quickly or updated. And we are planning to set up a specific group that almost that we can present the analytics to. We can discuss future of the website, and that's in the process of being set up. And I've just forgotten what the other. Social media. Yeah, no, we have a. Do you want to? We do have a very good social media campaign.
Absolutely, they go hand in hand, really. So we have a content schedule which talks to the website, and the website talks to our social media content. So it's pretty much one of the same amplification campaign, really.
Excellent. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. Thank you both very much for that. Do we have any further questions from the floor? Councillor Cook. Sorry, Callum.
Oh, wait, if you ask me again, Chairman. No, thank you, Mary, for the brief presentation and the report. So I think in terms of success, I think you can identify that obviously we are achieving success in terms of the website, and I think it is one of the, I think the Chairman's just alliterated in terms of it's the social media side as well. So I'd be quite interested for this committee to actually see the statistics in terms of click-through from social media onto the website, and then what if bookings are then taken further from that. I think it would be good if we could also, and I don't know how we would do it, whether we've got the data in terms of the demographics, in terms of who is accessing the website, because I'll presume it's a certain age bracket and above that probably clicks on to visit Lincolnshire more than anything. I think Councillor Baxter made a really good point actually in terms of, and I'll expand on it in terms of connectivity, and I think this is the one thing that we do have an issue with as a county. I think we all acknowledge and recognise it, which is people do go to one destination and they don't go elsewhere. For instance, at South Kesteven, the example is we have Isaac Newton's home just down the A1 and we have Belton House. And most of the time it is very difficult to get from Grantham to Isaac Newton's home. Similarly, for people in my own division of Stamford, the connectivity to get to Lincoln is nigh on non-existent. You literally have to get the train from Stamford to Peterborough and then get one of the trains or a couple of the trains to Lincoln. So it is incredibly difficult for, I suppose, inter-county tourism to a certain extent. But obviously it's different for people coming outside. I think the Chairman made the comment that I was wanting to make actually in terms of, I hope we're not recreating the wheel in terms of having lots of different bodies doing pretty much the same thing in terms of advertising our many visitor attractions. It was great to see, obviously, the best town in Lincolnshire was ranked as #1 in terms of the destination in the report, so thank you for that one. But I would like to focus more on the LVEP, and obviously we discuss in the report about our role within it. I just wondered if you could talk a little bit more about the governance on the LVEP, and also, obviously behind this there'll obviously be a risk register. So what are the biggest risks to us in the LVEP and also to us as a county in terms of tourism?
I don't know whether Justin wants to help me on this one because he does sit on the board. I think that we do have experience of similar organisations in the past, so I think we have been not nervous, but we want to make sure that it works, and that there isn't duplication, and that the new organisation is robust. So I think it's to be welcomed, the moves that Visit England have made, but I think that they're not putting any funding in, so they're very much calling the shots, but not putting any money in, which is sort of slight little unnerving. But I think that it's very much broadly to be welcomed. But I think that we always need to be cautious. Justin, do you want to?
Yeah, so in terms of governance, the LVEP process has been running for about a year now, and the objective that the partnership was working on was to gain status as a local visitor economy partnership, which it has now done, which is great news. What we set up for the year's process was a task and finish group, which had political and business representation on it. So it had one of the 3 Greater Lincolnshire Upper Tier authorities on it, which we took. It had Rutland County Council, and it had 2 district councils on it. And actually, generally by practice, 3 district councils were involved in terms of East Lindsey, Lincoln and North Kesteven. There's a piece of work going on now to say that now that the Visitor Economy Partnership has been accredited, what should a proper governance role look like moving ahead? And so the work that a small group of us is doing is to ensure that there are business voices leading the promotion of Greater Lincolnshire and Rutland, that there is a strong recognition that local authorities have a role in terms of product and in promotion, and that we have a series of work strands that a number of us have got particular strengths in. So our strengths very much around marketing, around business support, around employment and training. So we're working through the process with a view to coming up with a new visitor economy partnership that will steward the work of Destination Lincolnshire, but will also shape and support the whole partnership approach to avoid duplication and to make sure that we're focusing down on the right things. So, sorry, that was a lengthy answer, but essentially we're going through a process of ensuring that it's a proper partnership with each partner's contribution recognised within the governance. And I think the point which Mary made early on about the focus of the work is really, really important. There's a destination plan which recognises what Lincolnshire is as a tourist attraction and what it is not, and really is about using what we are to focus on the right visitors to try and increase the visitor base, and that will be the work that the LVEP will really get its teeth into.
Councillor Cook, would you like to come back on any of that?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. So I think, thank you for that explanation, and it's encouraging to hear how and, what is developing with the LVEP, and I think for me it's still very much a case of, we in local government should be there to support and enable, I think, this to go forwards, and I don't think we need to be too constrained in terms of perhaps our control over that body to a certain extent, because ultimately we are here just to enable and support. We are not here, we are not destination, managers or whatever else. There's a lot of attractions in our county, and we need to do whatever we can to promote and attract as many people here as possible.
Thank you, Councillor Cook. I have Councillor Wotton in the chamber, but first online, Councillor Davey, you're still with us and would like to contribute. Councillor Davey.
Yeah, Thank you very, very much. I've been listening to this debate with great interest. I think we're all agreed that tourism is vitally important for Greater Lincolnshire, for Lincolnshire, and it's vitally important for the success of our economy in the future. I think it's important to recognise that this council has invested heavily, particularly during the COVID period. We put additional money into the website and into other areas to support the sector, and it is, I wouldn't say it's concerning, but I would say it's a concern that government, as is always the case, enables things to happen and never supplies the necessary funding to make them work in the way that we would want them to work. So I do think there will be a financial requirement locally, not just from us, but from others, to make the LVAP work in the way that we would want it to work. And I'm very clear there should be a proper scrutiny process. And I see this committee as looking at the work of the LVAP once established and how it's funded and how it succeeds or doesn't, with the criticisms levelled as accordingly. I think the most important thing, though, is that we do have a successful website. It is driving traffic quite clearly. So whether you're in Stamford or Lincoln or on the coast, you can see the correlation from website hits to conversions. And I'm very clear that I want to see more money invested in, certainly in the green tourism sector of the website. Members may be aware that we are currently part of a process bidding for UNESCO World Heritage status for the coast in relation to the North Atlantic Flyway. So I think there are some great opportunities to come, but I think we do need to get the considerations correct and in order, particularly around how LVAP is going to work for all parts of Lincolnshire. And that is the key consideration for me. Point some of the members have already made, Chairman, is how do we get people just not to come to one place, but to actually come and experience Lincolnshire. And that is the piece of work we all need to concentrate on, because that's how we'll actually increase the spend and lure the more higher spend visitors to the county from other parts of the UK. So I think this is a good work in progress, but it is work in progress, and we all need to work together across the county, across all the authorities, to make sure the LVAP delivers for all the parts of the county. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much for that, and yeah, we will keep a very close eye on LDEP going forward. Moving on now to, again, another patient waiter, Councillor Linda Wootton. Councillor Wootton.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for the paper, Mary. I quite enjoyed tapping into all the websites and checking out things. But I had family stay with me last week, and they wanted something to do. And my daughter-in-law, 2 grandchildren, and they thought they'd go to the caves in Nottingham. Fortunately, they rang up and they discovered they were closed. So then I had this idea. I remember the days of you trundling us around the castle when it was being refurbished. So I said, how about going to the castle in Lincoln? Didn't know you had one. So we get in the car and we do some things for the grandchildren en route. And then we go to the castle. And what a fabulous time we had. The young man on the booking desk was really lovely, child-friendly, which went a long way because they came back and spent their pocket money in the shop. But it was a lovely day. We walked the wall and we did everything. And particularly the children were made to feel very welcome. And I know for a fact my family will come back because they also noticed the great big building, the cathedral. So a question I do have for you, Mary, and I'm sorry this, excuse me, is a bit castle orientated. Is there a double ticket that covers the castle and the cathedral? And also, do we rent out the prison area for events, i.e. dinners and things like that? And I noticed, and I know it's a little bit off season, the education and the craft area seemed sort of closed down. Is it running sort of during the season? Do you still do education and those sort of events there? Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Well, as Lincoln Castle consumed 10 years of my life, your comments are absolutely the right things to say to me. Yes, we do let out the prison building for dinners. It is quite an operation because you have to be clear by the dinner, the ones that we've done. It has to finish, and everything has to be cleared away so that you're ready to welcome visitors the next morning. So it is quite a challenge, but it is the most extraordinary space, and I don't think we should sort of sell it cheaply because it's a real asset. In terms of double ticket, there certainly was one which we developed when we opened in 2015, and I have a horrible feeling that it's in abeyance at the moment. It was never a very easy one to set up. I think it was because of VAT, is that the castle and the cathedral, because of the way they, I think because the cathedral's charity, I think the actual setting it up was extraordinarily difficult, and there was a lot of back office behind it to make it work. But I have a horrible feeling that I will find out that it's in abeyance at the moment.
Perhaps you could report back on that one to our next meeting, either in person or with a note. That would be appreciated. I'll come to it. They're coming from all sides. Just going back to your personal experience, it does occur to me that all of us members, that's 70, are ambassadors for the county, and effectively within your family group, that's exactly what you were doing. You refer to the castle as a remarkable space, I think, and it is, as is the cathedral, which I'm very fortunate to be able to look at from my study window every time I do this on Teams. But there are so many other remarkable spaces in Lincolnshire, some of which are well known, but others of which really are not. And I know I've stumbled on a lot in my work as a planner. You suddenly come across some remarkable building or some remarkable place which doesn't or hasn't historically got the kind of promotion behind it that maybe it deserves. Lincolnshire is a truly remarkable geography, and it is down to all of us in this room, particularly the programme that you're helping to run, but all of us in this room, members as well, to promote it. Somebody else wanted to come in? It was Justin at the back. Sorry, I didn't see you there.
Chairman, I'm just aware that my colleague Nicole is on the screen and she's got lead responsibility for the castle nowadays.
I was aware of that as well, and I was going to come to her, but then I had to come to you. Nicole.
Thank you. So in response to Councillor Wootton's questions, no, there is no longer a double ticket. Mary's kind of half answered that because there were issues with VAT with the cathedral being of a charitable status, plus the cathedral was going through its programme of refurbishment with funding from Heritage Lottery, and all of the administration costs fell upon the county council. So for us, it wasn't a cost-effective model. What we went to instead was a family pass. So we have an annual family pass, and that works out for the customer to be the most cost-effective model of being able to do it. We have had a number of conversations with regards to, is there a Lincolnshire Pass ticket that we could make available so that residents and visitors could have access to a number of visitor attractions. It's proven to be challenging to overcome some of the models about how we do it, how we would then share income, etc. But it's one that we will continue to pursue because for our visitors, it does absolutely make sense. With regards to the profile of the castle, of course, it's been in the top 5 of the UK's most popular castles for the last 6 years. It's won it twice, of which we are incredibly proud of. So it does have a very high profile. It's also for our heritage assets in County Council. We have our own Facebook page, our own Instagram, and we did have a TikTok account, which was incredibly popular. But obviously, due to internal security advice, we've had to remove that. And then the final centre, yes, it is open all year round, and runs a series of artisan classes, as well as the traditional heritage skills classes. So that's available also as a bookable space. And then the final bit, sorry, is that not only do we hire the castle for events, business events, as well as social events, but it's becoming an increasingly popular wedding venue. So after COVID, the government continued to allow licensing in other venues, and indeed for outdoor venues for weddings to take place. And so the castle, along with the Usher Art Gallery, is one of our premium sites and incredibly popular. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nicole. I think the castle has many friends, and I think this committee would endorse the congratulations to the team involved in it. To be in the top 5 is a great accolade. To actually win Best Castle of the Year twice is an extraordinary achievement, and it is a wonderful visitor experience that the team there provide, and they're to be congratulated on that. I'm not seeing any further hands raised either. Yes, I am. Councillor Higgs.
Thank you, Chairman. While we're talking about Lincoln Castle, I, like everybody else, think it's absolutely wonderful. But the one place I've never been inside, and I'm not sure whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, is in the court building. And I just wonder whether, been in the prison, and that's fantastic, but I just wonder, not to stay only as a visitor, I might add, but I've never been in the courtroom, and I wonder whether we have, obviously when it's not sitting, but I wonder whether that's ever open to parties going around to make, to bring the experience up to date, really. Thank you, Chairman.
I think we have Nicole online who would like to pick that one up. Nicole, over to you.
Yeah, it's a really interesting situation for us to try and be good neighbours with a working Crown Court. So whilst it's not open after hours for obvious security reasons, you can go in as an observer of court cases, so you can sit in the public gallery. But it's quite limited as to what you would actually see. In all due respect to what is a beautiful, beautiful building from the outside, it isn't quite so much that inside. So whilst courts 1 and 2 remain existing with the beautiful wood panelling, what has happened to the rest of the building in order to accommodate essentially what is an administrative function, it's not a delightful space, shall we say.
Well, thank you for that. So we learned from that there are 2 ways that you can actually inspect the inside of the court building, and I will leave it to everybody in the chamber and watching to decide which way they want to do it. I am now, I think, correct in saying that I see no further contributions sought by members or officers. So thank you very much indeed, Mary, and all colleagues and members. That was a really interesting discussion about a very, very important measure. I'm going to slightly amend the proposal that we have before us following that discussion. Falls now into 3 parts rather than 4. Firstly, that I move that Council endorse the achievements of the revitalised visitlincolnshire.com website. Secondly, that we support the local visitor economy partnership and endorse our role within it, which we've heard expanded and expanded on in some detail. And lastly, I request that our comments from today's discussion on how to encourage more of the local population and indeed the wider population to engage with the website and tourism in Lincolnshire be shared with relevant officers for their consideration and further action. Does anyone dissent from that? I'm seeing no dissent, so that matter is agreed. And again, my thanks for a very positive item on our agenda. Moving on, item 6 on the agenda is the Greater Lincolnshire I'll start this one again. The Greater Lincolnshire International Strategy and Action Plan 2022 to 2024 update. The report can be found on pages 19 to 58 of the agenda pack. The report outlines the progress made in implementing the action plan associated with the Greater Lincolnshire International Strategy launched in Q4 of 2022. The strategy recognised existing support for businesses involved in international trade, but identified opportunities for improvement in knowledge sharing, collaboration, coordination, and centralisation of information. And the update highlights successful initiatives, emphasising that international trade remains a priority area, aligning with the Council's Create Thriving Environments ambition. Despite accomplishments, challenges persist, such as the increased administrative burdens for exporters to Europe and forthcoming adjustments to the global trade rules for climate change. So the report recommends extending several activities from the action plan into 24 to 25. So the actions that we are invited to look at this morning are: 1, to note the current progress and the impact from delivery of the International Strategy Action Plan and confirm agreement to continue activity into 24-25. 2, to recommend whether to continue activity to progress the International Strategy Action Plan, taking account of the options proposed in the conclusion of the report. And 3, to continue to support the Growth Hub in highlighting services to business contacts and provide input to assist officers to plan future international trade support. And the report will be presented by Angela Driver, Enterprise Growth Manager. Angela, over to you.
Morning, everybody. Thank you very much for the opportunity to come along and provide an update on the things that we've been working on since the International Trade Strategy was launched in 2022. There's a lot of detail in the report, so I'll try and be brief and just highlight a few particular areas and add a bit of colour to the information that's provided in the report for everybody. As we know, international trade has been affected by multiple successive economic shocks over the last few years. And as a result, there has been concerns highlighted in the business community around the resilience of supply chains. So in terms of importing, there have been reports nationally around increased reshoring of manufacturing activities as businesses look to reduce their reliance on Asian suppliers of raw materials and components. So we're seeing increased reshoring activities. In terms of exporting, we have had reported from DBT that export trade levels have now returned to pre-COVID levels, which is really positive news. And locally, they tell us that Europe continues to be a very strong and important market for us locally in Greater Lincolnshire, alongside the USA. So just to highlight one or 2 points from there was an 18-point action plan that supported the international strategy, so it's quite a detailed piece of work. So I just wanted to highlight a couple of areas for members. The thing that we're really pleased to see is there is a much greater coordination now between the various organisations that are involved in supporting businesses with international trade. So we've got a very good working relationship now with DBT. We work very closely with Lincolnshire Chamber of Commerce, and we have our own international trade support programmes that we commission separately, so that there's a really strong ladder of progression and a coordinated approach to business support delivery locally. We've now got a coordinated plan of communication activity, and we meet regularly to update each other on what our plans are, what events are coming up, and work together to help each other deliver our activities. We can definitely see an increase in traffic through to our international trade pages on our website, which have undergone quite a significant improvement, with a lot more information available on those pages. And we can see in Q4 last year, there were 3 times as many visitors to those pages as there were in Q1 last year. So we can definitely see evidence of increased awareness through the Business Lincolnshire website pages. We also launched an international trade peer network programme. This was a very clear recommendation from the action plan. We've had 22 businesses so far who've taken part in 2 cohorts of that programme. The delegates' feedback is really, really positive. They really like the mixture of more formal learning alongside that kind of informal mentoring support that they receive from the cohort that they're part of. Lincolnshire Chamber of Commerce deliver that programme for us. The businesses come from a wide range of sectors. So we've got food and drink, we've got manufacturing, we've got service sectors. So there's kind of no competition within the cohorts, and they're all able to work together collaboratively. And there's an informal WhatsApp group where there's a lot of interaction between the group members. They ask each other questions and support each other with any issues that they might be seeing. Alongside that, we've got 8 larger businesses who are supporting a roundtable activity. We've got the roundtable actually booked in the next couple of weeks. And the idea of this group is for these larger, more experienced exporters to come together to think about how they might share some best practice, how they might help smaller, newer to export businesses with some of the knowledge that they've learned over their experience. We held our Going Global International Trade Conference in November last year. Again, really great feedback. We had 60 businesses in attendance, and the focus of that conference was really very practical. We wanted businesses to go away with very clear things that they were able to implement very easily within their own organisations. And we had a number of local businesses speak at that conference to share their knowledge and some of their lessons learned, if you like, through their export journey. So we had Plum Play talk to the conference about how they've accessed markets in the southern hemisphere where their summer time they make play equipment for outdoor play equipment. So they've targeted businesses in southern hemisphere countries to try and smooth out their supply and demand activity so that they've got year-round supply of their equipment. We had a company called Concept Smoke Screens. They talked about how it's really important to do your market research so that you properly cost and market your services within country at the correct price point. They had some interesting lessons that they'd learnt over the years in a particular market in the South American market where they felt that they had perhaps incorrectly priced their product. So that they shared that knowledge. And we had PAB Languages who talked about the cultural differences between trading in this country and trading abroad, and to have a really clear understanding of what those cultural differences are and the types of language that might not be offensive in our country but could be seen as offensive in other countries. So like I say, really practical, very local, and quite an inspiring conference, I think, for the delegates that came along. So we've kind of made a really, really great start, I think, in the action plan. I think there's some things that we want to focus on in the future. So we'd really kind of ask for member support in taking the action plan forward through to 24-25 and to continue the work that we've started. So I'll pause there. If that's all right, if anybody's got any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Members, two hands went up instantly. So I'm going to choose Councillor Spratt, and then I'll come to Councillor Baxter.
Thank you. Pardon me. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you very much for the report, Angela. You mentioned exports particularly getting back to pre-COVID levels. A friend of mine is I do have friends, is a fanatical European, and she absolutely insists that exports to the EU are well down on pre-Brexit. And I do see, like probably a lot of people come on telly, especially small businesses, and they say, small, medium businesses, and they say things like, because of the red tape and everything else, we've stopped exporting to Europe because it's just not worth our while to do so. I just wonder if you could give some sort of context to that scenario so I can go back to my friend, ex-friend, and discuss with her whether she's right or whatever.
Yeah, I think
Thank you, Chairman.
It's absolutely true to say that with the exit from the European market, there was a change in the administrative requirements of exporting to European countries, and obviously that's taken a little while for businesses to get to grips with those administration changes. I think what's kind of the other side of that coin is that it has been a catalyst for businesses to look at other markets. So we don't have any specific data from DBT, unfortunately, to understand what those other markets are. But I think it is true to say there has been a change in some businesses moving away from European markets, but replacing those markets with others. Other global markets. So although we might have seen a slight shift maybe in some markets, overall the data that the feedback that we're getting from DBT is that export volumes are back to pre-COVID levels, but the mix might be slightly different. However, European markets are still really important to Greater Lincolnshire businesses, and we do still see a lot of export activity to those areas. So I think possibly there was a big change. It's taken a while for that change to embed itself, but businesses are getting used to the administrative burden, the administrative requirements, and it has helped them look to other markets that already had that requirement to do that paperwork.
Angela, before I come to Councillor Baxter, can I just pick up on Councillor Spratt's point? If I understood you rightly, the DBT data you said does not allow us to understand. I don't know whether that's at a Lincolnshire granular level or nationally. But
no,
surely if we have this extraordinarily significant change of Brexit, we need to understand very thoroughly through statistics exactly what is happening in our business community in order that we can help both mitigate any harms and facilitate their drive to take new opportunities. Are you saying that we have inadequate data, and if that data is inadequate from a national source, is there anything that we can do here in Greater Lincolnshire with our partners to plug that gap?
Yeah, historically, there is commercial sensitivity around the HMRC data that tracks export activity at a Lincolnshire level. We do have East Midlands data that's available via DBT. So it's kind of the data's at a regional level, and we've long lobbied DBT to get access to more granular information so that we can get a really clear understanding of what's happening here in Lincolnshire. But at the moment, because the data is commercially sensitive, DBT are reluctant to share any data at any further granularity. So anything that the committee can do to support with helping us to lobby for that additional information would be very welcome.
Well, I'll leave it to other members to pick that up. But I mean, I absolutely understand that when you get to a tighter geographical area, clearly individual companies in statistics, when you start breaking those down by business sectors, can be very easily identified. So I absolutely understand that. But there's a flip side to this, that the data we're talking about is actionable. I'm not quite sure if you say the lowest level that it's available at is the East Midlands. I'm not quite sure what body would or would not be acting upon that data in an East Midlands context. What I am pretty sure of is that here in Lincolnshire, we are pretty effective in helping facilitate the development of economic activity within our boundaries, and that means that we need an evidence base which helps we can work on. So I think from the chair, I would say, other members may disagree, but from the chair, I would certainly say we need all the data we can get, because the more good data we have, the more we are able to help. However, that's my personal view. Others may differ. Councillor Baxter, you were next. Over to you.
Thank you, Chair. I'm at the limit of my understanding of this subject, and I insist on declaring my ignorance, particularly on page 40, in the context of international trade. Case study 2 is a Lincolnshire-based experience company. I don't really understand how to export an experience or to import an experience. And then I looked in the blurb, and it just went downhill from there, really, because I think what the box at the top of page 40 says is this stuff is really complicated, especially when you've got directors living abroad and experiences being here or there. I don't get it. However, I looked at the end of the document, and with the exception of a typo on page 29 where we talk about the Greater International Strategy rather than the Greater Lincolnshire International Strategy, it does kind of clarify. Certainly I welcome, at the bottom of page 28, simplifying the plan. I think simplifying any plan where it can be simplified is very welcome. But I think what impressed me most about this report are the words "if" on page 28 and the words "whether" in point 2 of the actions required, because we seem to be facing a genuine question of should we continue with this. So I'm interested in the pros and cons of doing that. Are we seriously being asked whether we should discontinue what we're doing? Is that an option? And if so, if we did discontinue the activity, who would pick it up? Would it be the Chamber, the Lincolnshire Chamber, or Business Links, or DBT, or would it just be kind of peer-to-peer encouragement? In deeping, in market deeping, we've got at least 2 relatively good exporting businesses. One is Garford's, which is a family firm, which has recently been bought, I think since Brexit, it's been bought by Germans and told kind of, although we own you, we want you to carry on, and they're doing a lot of export. And then another company called Indra, that was part of Northrop Grumman, they are Park Air Systems, originally a deepings company, now owned by Spaniards, bought since Brexit by Spaniards. So foreign entities are still investing in the deepings and elsewhere in Lincolnshire, I dare say. I don't know what relationship those companies or any other companies have with the county council. What is it that we do as a county council that we need to keep doing that wouldn't happen any other way? And how much does it cost us? What are we paying for this? So what is the cost of delivering this service, and what would be the cost of not delivering the service? Thank you.
Andrew, in picking that up, maybe you could start at the end, but don't forget the business about whether we can improve the experience that Councillor Baxter is having, and translating that bit. But the cost-benefit analysis and the are we really being asked, should we junk this? Over to you.
Beg your pardon, sorry. So in terms of cost of delivery, there is a small cost of delivery in terms of the programme, the delivery of the peer network programme, which has been procured through a commissioned contract with Lincolnshire Chamber of Commerce. There's also a small cost involved in pulling together the communication campaign through a procured contract with Social Change UK. The funding comes through a county council fund that was identified post EU exits business support fund, so that there's a small amount of funding that comes through there. There was also so in terms of the coordination activity, there's no kind of additional cost, if you like, because that's taken through the enterprise growth team to coordinate that activity. So in terms of who would do this work if it wasn't sort of progressed through the action plan, I guess the whole reason for the action plan, many of the points in the action plan were to point to that coordination activity, because it wasn't being done by anybody before. And it's one of those things where the activity was happening, business support was happening. It's just that if that activity is delivered in a much more coordinated way, then you get more bang for your buck, I guess, is that you know, it's the sum of the parts being greater. So I guess we would continue to do, Business Lincolnshire would continue to do that coordination activity, but without kind of the strategic priority being put on international trade, then budgets would be diverted to other things that were seen as more strategically important, I guess.
Samantha, please go ahead. Do you need the microphone?
Thank you. Head of Economic Development with Angela within the team. So one of the reasons that we had the strategy developed was we were working...
Samantha, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Could you have the microphone a bit closer to you, because we can't quite hear you at the back.
So one of the reasons we started working was the Department for Business and Trade wanted to make sure that all partners in Lincolnshire were working together, and there was a real gap between the number of our businesses that were accessing the national service. There was a too big a jump. So what they wanted to do was understand how we could work with our partners, the Chamber of Commerce, and how we could act as that influencer and that first stage to get the business on the international trade journey. So the peer networks, the conference, we've also got support clinics, so we can actually help businesses with any of their queries. That is a low-cost provision, but it ties everything together with the throughput of getting people onto that national, international trade programmes. And it is working, and we're held as an exemplar council for doing that, because it hasn't happened elsewhere, and they're trying to utilise that model. So it is very much a very small input. It is Angela's office of time that have pulled this together, but it is working in terms of a holistic, comprehensive model. So in terms of the we would really clearly want to see this programme proceed. I guess it's this resource that we're putting in and the impact, and we can monitor it moving forward. And as part of the devolution deal, internationalisation is included in there, and as part of those conversations we will be asking Department for Business and Trade for the more granular data, and we need to get to that stage. So it's more about making sure that the business community are aware of the service that we provide, and we act as that connector. But it is a longer term strategy. We're in the first phase of it, so we can look to review elements of it. So that's the kind of where we're asking for the endorsement, or are you happy with our direction of travel to date? Thank you.
Councillor Spratt.
Can I follow on the comments? Interesting, Councillor Baxter, I think, to be fair to him, mentioned like a cost-benefit analysis and such like. Well, I suppose in a way, if you shut the Economic Development Department down at the County Council altogether, you'd save a lot of money on salaries, wouldn't you? However, and that's certainly not a view I advocate, I would argue, and I think Councillor Cook mentioned earlier, I think he used the word facilitate. and I think the County Council does an excellent job and should continue to do a job in terms of facilitating, working together with partners to encourage economic development. And I do hope, after Samantha just mentioned, when we get the devolution settlement through, which is about economic development and such like, this council could do wonders, even more than it does now, on helping exporters. And I noticed it said, you know, export capacity is currently stretched at the moment. Well, if we got more people in there helping more businesses and getting rid of the issues that prevented businesses from exporting to Europe, because although you correctly said, Angela, about businesses exporting perhaps to the Far East rather than Europe, just think if they were exporting to the Far East as well as Europe. And so if the council as a facilitating body can help people to do that and help them to get rid of the red tape and such like. I mean, although I'm a Tory, Mr. Chairman, a staunch Tory indeed, but I've never been against intervention in terms of economic policy on a local level. And I think this county council does that really well, and it should continue to do it.
Thank you for that, Councillor Spratt, although I would remind all colleagues that whilst we may have our personal political affiliations or none, we leave those at the door when we come into the scrutiny. But I do take the point, yes, we jolly well do, Hilton. What I would say, because that is what scrutiny is about, training courses are available for you all to do all over again. If anybody has missed that particular point, they are long and they are detailed. But I think going back to the thing, I think we've had an issue which Councillor Baxter identified purely about how you read the wording of item 2, and I think we've now got quite clearly that we're talking about the direction of travel. It would be possible to misread that as something slightly more dramatic, which was clearly not intended. But I think the points that I've gathered from really what everybody has said from the floor really underline the importance of the role that local government can play, and that this council has played and continues to play in facilitating the private sector. And Brexit has been mentioned, and for many businesses, particularly small and medium-sized enterprises, which are very dominant within the economy of Lincolnshire, it is incredibly important basically to have somebody who from time to time can give you some advice, can hold your hand, can put you together with contemporaries who are in the same situation and help get over some of those issues which have arisen, particularly in terms of non-tariff barriers, which are real, and yet we have to, adapt to the modern world and get over. So it seems to me that the thrust of what the committee has asked about and has spoken about is to say well done for what's going on at the moment. And as we've seen in a particular specific area when we were talking earlier about tourism and a sector of our local economy, any help that we can provide, any expertise we can provide going forward is absolutely vital to the prosperity of our residents, because without a vibrant local economy, we as a council and all our district and parish councils can't do all the things they want to do and we want to do, but also the level of prosperity which our residents enjoy will be progressively reduced. So are there any more speakers from the members? It's Councillor Cook again. Tail ending again.
Oh, thank you, Chair. I just don't get my hand up quick enough, that's the problem. So thank you very much for the report. It is interesting. Can you just talk as well about how Team Lincolnshire feeds into this work, particularly around international trade and the job that they do and how we support them? I think that'd be quite interesting. And also about how we then sell our county, because obviously we've got MIPIN coming up, and I presume there will be a delegation going from either the council or from Team Lincolnshire, and I presume we'll also be supporting that financially. So I suppose it's what benefits do we get from supporting both Team Lincolnshire as well as the wider council? I've got hands going up all over the place now. And then actually I think Councillor Spratt made one of the best comments, which is, advocating the Mayor of Greater Lincolnshire, the salesman on that stage, both across the United Kingdom and further afield. But yeah, if you could raise some points about Team Lincolnshire, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you. I may defer, if that's all right, to Tony Reynolds, who's here from the Team Lincolnshire team, who will be able to talk about that more eloquently than I think.
I guess, may I just jump in? So I just wonder if there's been a, so there are two elements to the international trade. So there's the international trade strategy that Angela's spoken about getting businesses to export. And then we've got Tony's team, which is inward investment, about getting investors into Greater Lincolnshire and Team Lincolnshire. So the next paper that you'll hear after this is the one that talks about Team Lincolnshire in more detail. So I don't know whether you want to save it until... So, okay, that's fine. Just to put it in context, I didn't want to confuse the two.
Very happy, excuse me, very happy to go into my report if there's no more questions, and that will detail the Team Lincolnshire. I can take the specific question.
As a separate item, I think, because that's just the way the agenda is constructed.
Okay, so we'd like to just do a quick update in terms of Team Lincolnshire. So Team Lincolnshire is an autonomous independent ambassador programme that is run as part of my team. And so we have 144 ambassadors that represent Lincolnshire as businesses, and we utilise those connections and collaborations for the benefit of inward investment, and obviously the benefit of those businesses in terms of the connections that they can make. And that's part of the three things that the inward investment team do, alongside dealing with inward investment inquiries and also the engagement of foreign businesses that are already located within Lincolnshire as part of the DBT programme we support. Hopefully that. MIPIM, yes, yes, we're attending MIPIM this year. The delegation is myself, just me. Councillor Davey came with me last year. My principal aim at MIPIM this year is to speak to institutional investors, i.e. pension funds, to be able to showcase the sector propositions that we have in Greater Lincolnshire that are investable opportunities that we would like to bring those connections back to have further conversations and introduce them to the districts and the clusters that we have across Lincolnshire.
Thank you very much for that. And Janine.
Thank you. Just at a granular level, we do have a number of Team Lincolnshire members that support the peer-to-peer network activity through the Chamber. So we do use Team Lincolnshire platforms and their social media platforms to actually promote the internationalisation activity that we have, particularly around the large roundtable activity that will be kicking off in a few weeks as well.
Are there any further points from members or from officers? Councillor Spratt.
Thought I was confused. I was trying to put exporting within the general economic context. I know you've just mentioned that, but I wanted to develop that point, which you did, but I wasn't confused. Thank you.
Having resolved that confusion and seeing no further comments from the floor, and we have another item which is related to this lined up and ready to go next on the agenda, we've gone through our actions, and I think we understand the intent now of the wording of action number 2. So we now move to the proposal. So I move that the committee is satisfied by the current progress and the impact from delivery of the International Strategy Action Plan as reported, and confirm our agreement to continue activity into 24-25 in line with today's discussion. Secondly, that we endorse the activity to progress the International Strategy Action Plan being continued. And thirdly, I request that members continue to showcase their support the Growth Hub in highlighting services to business contacts and providing input to assist officers plan future international trade support. So we've had a very good discussion on this. Is there any dissent to that? I am seeing none. Thank you very much. That is agreed. And that enables us to move seamlessly to item 7, which is indeed the Inward Strategic Investment Plan. The report can be found on pages 59 to 80 of your agenda pack. The report outlines the development of the Inward Investment Strategic Plan, collaboratively crafted with input from Team Lincolnshire steering group comprising members from the public and private sectors dedicated to advancing Greater Lincolnshire's prosperity. This update builds upon the plan approved in January 2023, introducing new strategic aims and objectives aligned with the investment priorities of Greater Lincolnshire, Lincolnshire County Council and Greater Lincolnshire Local Enterprise Partnership. Furthermore, the report includes an interim performance update detailing progress against key performance indicators up to January 2024. Our actions before us this morning are: 1, to note the progress toward the inward investment strategic plan, and secondly, to consider and endorse the proposed investment alignment of the inward investment service, the support for foreign direct investment businesses, and Team Lincolnshire ambassadorial programme to help secure strategic supply chain investment within our priority sectors. And the report will be presented by Tony Reynolds, who we've just heard from, the Inward Investment Manager. So with that very long and hard to read out introduction, Tony, it's your floor.
Thank you, Chairman. Hello, everybody. This is delighted to be my first scrutiny committee, so thank you for your time. I took over the role in May of last year from Karen Seal, who delivered this report for the 23 to 25 strategic plan in January last year. I'd like to cover the points in the quite lengthy report in three areas. I'd like to cover the performance update, the alignment of our service, and then finally to finish on inward investment brand. So from a performance perspective, we're approaching the halfway point of our business plan that was delivered in January 23. To January 24, we're making good progress towards those key performance indicators as documented in the report. We've received 87 inward investment inquiries, with the main sectors of inquiry being advanced engineering and manufacturing, agri-food and energy. 7 investment inquiries have subsequently converted across the county, and they are at various stages of completion as we speak today. We also run a key account management program for foreign-owned businesses, so foreign direct invested businesses. It's a program we run on behalf of the Department of Business and Trade, and that key account management program supports 35 businesses located across Lincolnshire. In 2023, 7 investment projects to existing facilities have completed. This has created 60 new jobs and seen over £12 million of capital expenditure invested. A really good example of that is a local business in Lincoln that has expanded to open 2 new manufacturing lines to their business, and we've supported them with regards to the overall project and skills for the development of new starters and maintaining their ongoing workforce in the skilled area of manufacturing. Secondly, I'd like to talk about alignment of service. Since I started in the role in May, we've made some strategic enhancements to align our work. So working across inward investment, the FDI Key Account Management Programme and the Team Lincolnshire Ambassador Programme, we've created 3 industry sector-based officer portfolios. This enables officers to specialise, to deepen their knowledge in sectors and to add more value to the businesses that we support by being able to understand their issues, particularly in the current environment. Additionally, this mirrors the context and the networks that these businesses work within in their own business and their day-to-day operations. And finally, in terms of brand, the Invest Lincolnshire brand is being created to supplement that of Team Lincolnshire. This clearly defines inward investment activities from ambassador-led engagement. It's vitally important potential investors can easily identify, search and engage with our officers, so we're able to articulate the opportunities and support that businesses across Lincolnshire and the investment opportunities that Lincolnshire has to offer. The Invest Lincolnshire website and marketing strategy will showcase sector-based investment opportunities, skills and collaboration engagement moving forwards. I'm happy to take anyone's questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed for that report. Members who'd like to start us off, questions, please. Well, seeing a flurry of hands go up. Callum. You normally go last. Go first.
I'll ask one question then. So, obviously, I'm a massive advocate for what Team Lincolnshire does. I've seen the progress of the work and the involvement of numerous members for a number of years now. So, credit to the organisation for what it is doing. I suppose with, I know we always talk about Lincolnshire, and I know in the report you mentioned about Greater Lincolnshire. And is it a case that we really are reaching businesses from across the whole of Greater Lincolnshire, or are we still predominantly more county of Lincolnshire based?
So all investment opportunities that are routed to us via the Department of Business and Trade, we represent all of Greater Lincolnshire. So that can be across the whole county. Team Lincolnshire is predominantly Lincolnshire. However, we have seen, and as part of our strategic plan, we've grown the ambassadorship into North Lincolnshire and North East Lincolnshire to be more representative of the whole county. So I think it's fair to say that we work very closely with all the economic development teams across all of the districts across Lincolnshire. However, obviously we're focused in relation to inward investment in Lincolnshire also.
Thank you very much. Councillor Taylor, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Some of that question was touched on in that last answer. Regarding the ambassadors, 143, impressive figure there. Can I have some more information on that? So is recruitment still taking place? Is training provided? Do these cover all sectors of the economy and all parts of the county? Thank you.
I think of all the ambassadors, my view coming into the post was that it perhaps needed to be more representative of all the areas across Greater Lincolnshire and also of all of the sectors. I would say it started in 2017. Predominantly, it came out of MIPIN, and so it was construction-led by developers and investors in its infancy. That's developed across lots of sectors, but our main focus of recruitment into that ambassador program, and we administer the program so it's autonomous, is to make sure that it is better represented across the sectors so it matches our ambitions in relation to inward investment. So we undertake a conversation with businesses who approach us to be part of that ambassadorial program because we really want to make sure that they fully understand. It's an eat together model, so it's not necessarily what you get out of the program. It's directly correlated to the benefit you add to the other ambassadors, and then by the nature of that, the benefits you get out of it.
Thank you, Chairman. I think just in terms of, obviously there's a lot of different conferences and stuff, but obviously the one that I think is becoming prevalent, and in my work with the LGA actually, in terms of engagement with businesses and investors and everybody else, is UK Reef.
Yes.
So I suppose, can you just detail exactly what our involvement with this year's conference is, and hopefully our attendance there as well?
Yes. So UK Reef is happens in May this year. So it's quite a big event. I attended with Andy Gutherson, the Executive Director, last year to get a good understanding of what it was all about. We are taking a Greater Lincolnshire Pavilion at UK Reef, which will be representing the whole of Greater Lincolnshire as part and parcel of presenting one voice to the investor community about the opportunities across Lincolnshire. The pavilion will be set up on a sector basis, so it will align to our inward investment strategy, and also supported by our Team Lincolnshire ambassadors, and we'll be having a fringe event hosted by Team Lincolnshire on the Wednesday night. So in addition to that, we have taken 2 speaker sessions within the Midlands Engine Pavilion. One of those speaker sessions will be on the UK Food Valley strategy, and the second will be on low carbon energy. So we are in full attendance at UK Reef as we see it as a really good opportunity to showcase what Lincolnshire has to offer.
No, thank you for that, and I'm in full support. I know it's not quite as sunny in Leeds, but actually in terms of the conference and the benefits that come out of it, I mean, I'll be there under a different hat, not a county council hat, but a work one, and the benefits I think to the local community are brilliant, and it is a superb conference, as you say.
A question from me. This is something which is relatively new. Looking back over the first year or so of operation, could you tell us what challenges have been encountered, particularly dealing with individual sectors which are mentioned in the report, and how you are meeting those challenges and mitigating them going forward. In other words, what's been easy, but what has been difficult and how you've been coping with difficulties.
I think my kind of feedback in the first instance being, I guess, almost a year in post leading the team, was I felt it was really important that we applied the sector lens so that we're able to educate ourselves and operate on the way and the basis that business operates in terms of sector. So I came, prior to working for Lincolnshire County Council, I came from the banking sector who mirrored this approach. So it's a well-trodden path in terms of how businesses and support is engaged to business. I think the challenges we see with foreign investment, I think Lincolnshire is in a unique situation with regards to opportunities, from energy to agriculture. So feeding the nation to keeping the nation warm is a great opportunity for Lincolnshire going forward, and that's been brought by a number of geopolitical events across the globe. I think the businesses that we see in terms of specific challenges across Lincolnshire are always going to be access, skills and power of the three general areas of, I guess, challenges that the business communities see in terms of overseas investment. It's interesting to see the number of different inquiries that we deal with do still come from Europe in the main. But South America and America, particularly in the energy sector, we've seen a number of inquiries over the last 6 to 9 months in those areas. So generally speaking, the investment inquiries we deal come from multinational corporate businesses who perhaps don't feel the same challenges that some of the smaller local businesses do across Lincolnshire. And of course our role is to make sure we support and bring those opportunities in, but also support local businesses and foreign-owned businesses that aren't always multinational corporates. They're foreign businesses that have bought local businesses, and it's really important that we support those so those businesses grow and stay in the county.
Thank you very much for that. Further questions from members? Vice Chairman.
Yeah, it's following on from what the Chairman said, and I apologise if you covered it while I nipped to get a drink. Obviously, if we look at the KPIs on page 74, we're doing quite well in terms of some of those metrics. Why? I mean, obviously it's a good thing, but we set the KPIs based on expectations, and I would assume data-led KPIs, so some of them are doing really well. Is it just that we're offering a fantastic opportunity for businesses to get involved? So yeah, if you could talk us through sort of why you're doing really well and what any challenges you faced from doing really well, such as staff constraints, etc., that you've encountered.
I think we're doing really well in relation to some of the connectivity. I think that's down in part to the collaboration we have with the Team Lincolnshire ambassadors. I certainly think we've enhanced our support for businesses in the way that we've set ourselves up to be able to have sector-based portfolios. Also, that means that from a social media perspective and a connectivity perspective, we are more relevant to the businesses we support, and we're able to connect those businesses more intelligently. And I think that what that drives is putting business people together in the right environment. Those business people know how to connect with businesses because that's how they've managed to be successful in business. And so we're really trying to provide a platform for those businesses to be able to support each other. And I think that's why you'll see the KPIs, we're really successful in those connections, because ultimately it's just providing that platform for those businesses and those business owners to connect and collaborate.
Thank you very much indeed from that. I'm looking around the room to see if there are any further questions. I'm seeing no hands raised, in which case we say thank you very much indeed. Again, as with the previous item, it just underscores the importance of what we do here at the County Council in our own right and with our partners to encourage economic development within Greater Lincolnshire and the prosperity of everyone who lives in Greater Lincolnshire, because economics can often sound like a really abstract thing. It isn't. It really is about the prosperity and happiness and quality of life of the residents we serve. So that was a good discussion. I'm going to pull it together with a proposal to put to members. So firstly, I move that the committee is satisfied with the current progress reported in relation to the Inward Investment Strategic Plan. And secondly, that we endorse the proposed investment alignment of the Inward Investment Service to support the support for the foreign direct investment businesses and the Team Lincolnshire ambassadorial programme. And thirdly, I ask that the points raised in today's debate are cascaded through to the team of officers delivering the service and the programme. Does anyone dissent from that? I am seeing no dissent. In that case, thank you very much indeed. That is agreed. So we now move on to the next agenda item, which is service level performance against the performance framework, Q3 2023-24. This report summarises the service level performance against the Success Framework 2023-24 for Q3 on all three areas that fall within the remit of the Scrutiny Committee: economy, environment and waste. And the report can be found on pages 81 to 94 of the agenda pack. And the action before us is that we consider and comment on the environment and economy service level performance for Q3. The report will be presented by Samantha Harrison, Head of Economic Development, Chris Miller, Head of Environment, and Chris Yorston, Head of Waste. And we will take questions after each section of the presentation. So to begin with, I think it's Samantha, over to you.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Excuse me. So I'm pleased to update you on the three performance measures for economy. So we are in a situation where we are exceeding the target currently, which is fantastic. In terms of businesses supported, we've had some really extensive programmes that have been delivered through the Business Lincolnshire Growth Hub. We've commissioned some new services in terms of low carbon support, retail, leisure and hospitality programmes, and a digitisation and scale-up programme, and they seem to be embedding well within the business community. Our Made Smarter industrialisation programme is going from strength to strength, and we have now been able to extend the programme to micro businesses, and we've seen a real influx in the number of smaller businesses that are wanting to embark on a digital journey and digitise their service offering, which is great news. As you heard earlier from Tony, we've got the Team Lincolnshire programme, and we've had a number of events and conferences and sector activity that has actually engaged the business community and helped to drive it forward. So in terms of businesses supported, we're in a good place. This has been further added to by our Multiply programme. So as part of Multiply, we are able to support businesses, and we've been able to offer a grant to Multiply champions to get the numeracy programme embedded within a business, and we've been able to support businesses with a support for staff training, support for resources, support to help people navigate through any of their kind of financial challenges in relation to numeracy education. We are pleased. This is our main delivery period, so we're pleased with the direction of travel in terms of the business support activity. The second target that we have is the number of qualifications achieved by adults. We are ahead of target in terms of this delivery arena, which is fantastic. And this is predominantly down to a number of the courses that we've been provided. There are multiple qualifications attached when a person embarks on a particular course, particularly in the construction sector or in the business administration sector or hospitality. So we are hitting our target markets in terms of learners that are either slightly away from the market in terms of unemployed learners, in terms of people with lower prior attainment, and male learners across the board. So we are reaching the need, and we are filling a gap where there isn't direct provision through the colleges or through separate training providers. The final target that we have is external funding attracted to Lincolnshire, and you've heard today through Angela and through Tony the kind of funding that we are securing through the Department for Business and Trade. So that continues that trend. We have fought to bid for that money, and we are able to bring that into the Greater Lincolnshire. We're also working with our district councils on delivering their business support offer through the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, and that is going very well. And we've also got the Adult Education Programme budget and the Multiply programme. So I'm pleased to say, in terms of direction of travel for external funding achieved, we're on track moving forward. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much indeed for that, Samantha. Members? Well, you seem to have satisfied absolutely everybody with those comments. We're running slightly behind time, so normally I'd chuck in a few of my own, but well done, is all I can say. We'll move on in that case. Thank you very much indeed for that report, Samantha. Next, we have two Chris's. It's Chris Miller first. Chris, over to you.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, just the quarterly report on the flooding incidents and the Section 19 reporting, as members will be able to see from the report and the graph attached. We're now in the reporting period in which Storm Babette will appear. So you can see the significant number of Section 19s we're faced with based out of that event alone, an extra 185 just from Storm Babette, covering about 720 or so properties. What the report doesn't properly go into, because we're not actually in the Q4 reporting period yet, is the additional work coming out of Storm Henk. Also, I've popped it onto the report as well, but we're looking at another 130 or so internally flooded properties, 42 of which have been flooded in both, and that generates another 68 Section 19 reports. With the significant increase in the number of reports, we've outsourced some of that work to a set of 3 consultants, and we're prioritising those Section 19 reports, where residents would be classed as vulnerable. So they're going to be the ones we're getting through first, but we have set ourselves an ambitious target of getting through all these by the end of August, bearing in mind that there may be some that are a little bit more complex than others, depending on the circumstances, which might go beyond that date. But we've set ourselves, as I say, an ambitious target to try and get through these, to give some assurance and some information back to the residents that have suffered the most. Okay, many thanks, Chairman.
Thank you very much for that report. I'll come to Callum first, and then I'll be the tail end Charlie for once. Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Chairman, and excuse my ignorance on this because I'm not an expert on flooding. However, obviously the local communities in the south of Lincolnshire were certainly impacted most recently. It's just more of a question around these, the Section 19 reports, and I suppose it's why are there so many from what appears to be a long time, and have these just not been prioritised, or is it a case that they take a long time to undertake? I'd just like some more understanding as to why we've got so many outstanding, and obviously we've got a massive increase from the recent flooding, so presumably we want them to be resolved as quickly as possible, and are we putting additional resource? Obviously we've had the budget meeting, which I think obviously came out of that, and when do we, so you are confident that August will be the date?
Certainly for those coming out of the Storm Babette and Storm Henk events, you're quite rightly pointing out, Councillor, that we do have some outstanding ones from previous years when it's been the general business as usual, pardon the phrase, for flooding, where we've been aligning resources to try and resolve those. Some of those are complex and have taken some time, and some of them have been very close to sign off, but then we got the Storm Babette event and things sort of ramp up in, for what was a small section, hopefully expanding now based on the recent council budget, which will give us the resources to get through more of this work and start informing the risk management authorities who may be able to assist in alleviating those flooding events.
I'm glad I turned to Councillor Cook first because he partly covered ground I was going to cover. You might want to expand for us a little bit on the resource being applied to the Section 19 process, but also just in terms of the team dealing with it. These are dealing with horrible circumstances. I've said in this chamber before, there is simply nothing more soul-destroying than having a property flooded out, particularly if that property is your home. And I should imagine most members in this chamber, if not all, have residents who have suffered that. I certainly have a number, including some who are in that category of having been flooded out in Babette, and while they're beginning the drying out process, find they're being flooded again with Henk. And really it's a question of how the team is coping. We have this huge number of new Section 19s, more than 250, and I think the total number of incidents across the two floods of actually premises being flooded is now more than 850. The team are dealing with people who, as you rightly said, in many cases will be very distressed and have suffered an absolutely horrible set of circumstances. How are our team coping, and what are we doing to support them, both in terms of the overall metric of resource and also making sure that they are coping with a very challenging situation? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for those words about the team. They obviously have been very challenged since last October and exacerbated by the event in January as well. Generally, they're getting on fine. We're getting through the work, noses to the grindstone. In terms of those Section 19 reports, because of the limited resources we have internally to cover across that number of reports, as I said in my previous answer, we've outsourced that to 3 individual specialist companies, which will enable us to get through them a lot quicker, to leave sort of the floods and water team internally to be able to sort of manage that process rather than getting into the granular detail of every individual event. And yes, you're right, it is difficult for the team in terms of dealing with that with the individual residents. But as I say, hopefully the extra resources that will be coming towards that team will help alleviate the pressure on individuals and will be able to progress more swiftly. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much for that. Turning next to Councillor Fleetwood.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes. Although this report refers to PI 72, flooding incidents investigated, this is Section 19 where water has entered into properties. I'm concerned about the near misses as well, the very close scenarios where water's gone into sheds, into outbuildings. I don't know quite if a conservatory would nearly count. In some instances, it would depend upon the quality of the conservatory as to whether it will become a Section 19 recorded item. But then, in addition to this, I'd like some reassurance from the Council that other businesses are being looked after and investigated within flooding issues, public houses, restaurants, caravan sites, other such businesses. The farming community are out there still suffering. I have Short Ferry in my division, which is still 3-4 feet underwater and will be underwater for at least another 3 months while the Environment Agency are working on their repairs, according to a report I've been sent. So it remains to be seen. But then, in addition to all that, I have a village hall, Stainfield Village Hall. And a village hall sounds to be a simple thing to try and sort out with regard to a flood issue, but this village hall is actually let on a long-term peppercorn rent from the Church Commission and the church. So how do those people go about trying to recover in these flood incidents, and do we have any level of support for them?
Chris, a number of definitions there which come into play and are really quite important, and I wonder if in giving your answer you could confirm what I believe to be the case, that we are recording and mapping near misses as well as those triggering full Section 19s.
Try again. Thank you, Chairman. Yes, that's quite right. So, yeah, a near miss would be where there is flooding externally to within the curtilages of a property, whereas we would consider ingress into the property the trigger for the Section 19 report proper, although that doesn't exclude the opportunity of doing them for other events as well, rather than just internal property flooding. That would include businesses, it's included schools and other properties, so it's not just limited to residences. We would also potentially look at Section 19s for large swathes of agricultural land, or any other land, to be fair, as well. And the other one is where we have long-term standing water on highways, which is causing disruption to the life of the community. That would also be something we would undertake a Section 19 for as well. So I hope that sort of clarifies the position for Councillor Fleetwood.
Thank you very much indeed. Next is Councillor Higgs.
Thanks, Chairman. I'm curious to know the process after Section 19s have been completed, and when the additional £4 million that this council decided to put to flood defences, at what stage that money is used, and is it prioritised that any flooding that's attributable to this council, that money gets used solely for that, and any money left over then goes to aid other parts. And another question, if I may, and I'll make it the final one, is flooding that's attributed to other agencies, what sort of pressure that we will bring onto them to ensure that that work's carried out as timely as possible?
Thank you, Councillor Higgs. Yes, so when the Section 19 reports are completed, that goes to what are called the risk management authorities. So that would be someone like the internal drainage boards or the Environment Agency, or potentially even our own internal highways colleagues if there's been an issue with highway drainage which has exacerbated or caused a flooding event. In terms of ensuring what needs doing is done, we have no enforcement power, but we work closely with our agencies in partnership to make sure that the monies we spend, including the 4 million recently awarded for flood alleviation, is spent wisely, is targeted properly, so that between us we can make sure that across all the risk management authorities we're doing the best we can for the people of Lincolnshire in terms of those that have suffered the most. If it were, for example, a highways one, you'll be aware that we also, the council also awarded a sum of money to improve the gully and lateral drainage system cleansing. So that will again help and aid those that have suffered where that has been the issue or one of the main causes. So hopefully between us all and the partnerships, we have a very strong partnership with those agencies, we'll be able to make sure that we're doing the right things.
Thank you, Chairman. One last question is, are we going to wait until all of the Section 19s are being done before we prioritise the jobs that we feel, or will we start doing the programme of improvements or repairs as those schemes are noted and finished? Thank you, Chairman.
In all likelihood, it will be towards the end of the process when, you know, if we're looking towards August as being our target date, partly because of our own resource levels. Whilst we are going to be employing more people into the section, we've got the recruitment processes to go to, and then they'll have to be trained and so on. So actually having the resource to deal with it before August is unlikely, but we will be able to ascertain patterns or areas and clusters where we can start those conversations with the risk management authorities that would be assisting in trying to alleviate those flooding events.
Thank you very much for that. Turning now to Councillor Baxter.
Thank you, Chair. A lot of the questions that I was going to ask have already been asked. I just wanted to put on record my thanks to Mr. Miller and all the and also Councillor Davies and Davies and Davey for the work they've done, particularly in regard to Gretford and Tallington. On Friday morning, while I was here complaining about the response of the County Council to the ongoing flooding incidents in Tallington, officers were on the ground in Tallington talking to parish councils and looking for a way forward. I believe that they've sorted out a pump now as an interim measure. The problems are not solved completely, but I thank you for the attention. Thank you.
Councillor Baxter has slightly anticipated what I was going to say, but I'll just add it anyway. I think that the team here at the County Council has been under enormous pressure. I've been privileged to work with members of that, including obviously Matthew Harrison, one of the leaders of that. And let's also remember that we have specialist officers. We have a project team dealing with groundwater flooding. We've heard a lot about surface water flooding. That has exacerbated in many cases around the county groundwater flooding. And what I've found is that although a huge amount of resources clearly having to be devoted to dealing with the Section 19s, which is a formal and statutory process, the availability of our officers, as we've just heard from Councillor Baxter, to get involved on the ground, I'm thinking particularly in my personal case, in my division of Hayington School, which has suffered historically from repeated flooding from groundwater. Frankly, it should, there's a clue in the name, folks, Mill Stream. Maybe it wasn't the best place back in the 70s to build a school, but somebody built a school there, and that school is very much at the heart of that community. And when a school is closed down or when a public building is closed down, there are much wider ramifications than just education or some office space. But the involvement of our officers at a time of enormous stress to them has been very commendable. And I have to say also the way in which our officers are working, and I've been in numerous meetings to do with my role in this council and others, where our officers have been working with the internal drainage boards and with the Environment Agency. And the Environment Agency, because of its national stance, it is too easy just to demonise it. It will be here in this chamber answering questions of members later in the flood and water management inquiry. I don't want to in any way prejudge that. But it is true that officers on the ground from all sorts of different bodies have been working with our staff, often under hugely challenging circumstances, physically apart from anything else. And I just hope, Chris, that you'll be able to take the thanks of everyone in this committee, I think, for the hard work that they have done and for the hard work that they continue to do, and of course for the support that they're providing for our sister committee in flood and water management in their inquiry. I think we all owe them a great debt. Seeing no further questions on this very important subject, I switch from one Chris to another. Welcome, Chris Yorston, to our proceedings. Over to you.
Good afternoon, everybody. To present the Q3 waste performance statistics, we've got household waste collected for Q3 is at 757 kilograms per household, which is below the target of 780 kilograms, which is good news, as this is prevention, and this is the highest objective of the waste hierarchy. This means we've got less waste presented, with less haulage and processing required. Overall, the recycling rate for Q3 is 39%, which is below the target of 50%. We've got a forecast for the end of the year currently at 41%. The recycling rates for the household waste recycling centres is at 72.9% for Q3. It's a slight reduction from Q2, and this can be attributed to seasonal variation, typically associated with the reduction in green waste that's presented at the recycling centres. The performance indicator for landfill waste continues to be very low, which is excellent news. We're well below the target of 5%. We're projecting an actual rate of 0.31%. Officers have worked incredibly hard to secure additional EFW capacity during outages and divert that waste from landfill. Nationally, our household waste recycling rates align with the national picture. They are typically around 42%. However, the government have introduced recently the simpler recycling schemes, introduced also by DEFRA, and this is going to include segregated food waste collections from 2026. Our initial early estimates are that 30,000 tonnes of food waste, which is currently mixed in with the black bins general waste, which currently goes to energy from waste for recovery, can be diverted to anaerobic digestion. Anaerobic digestion is classed as recycling, and so we can move food waste from recovery to recycling on the waste hierarchy, and we're predicting it's around a 7% improvement in the overall recycling rates. So we'll be shortly bringing forward a detailed report on food waste to this committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions from the floor? Councillor Baxter.
Thank you for your report. I notice the household waste collected is actually very slightly higher than last year, so I guess it's business as usual, where I think we'll, based on the previous year's figures, we'll beat the target of 1,000 as we do almost every year. At what point do we say we want to reduce this target to 9,950 or something similar? It's been 1,000 for a long time. The recycling rate, it's interesting that you say that it's similar across the UK. It almost feels like, regardless of where we are or what we do, we can't affect this. And we've got a target of 50%, and the food waste undoubtedly will help. The segregation of paper and cardboard from everything else is getting us far better quality recyclate, but it's not doing anything in terms of the overall number. Have you any idea how we're really going to shift the dial, so to speak, to shift it from, it seems fairly stagnant at around 41% for Lincolnshire over the last few years. If anything, it has been heading in the wrong direction. And will we ever get it to what they get in Switzerland and Germany? Is that impossible to dream of? And finally, the household waste recycling centres, again, we're below target, which is a shame. Has the new contract not had any impact on that? I thought that we'd change the contractor so that our household waste recycling centres would be better at recycling what's brought to them. Well done on the waste to landfill, which is beyond our wildest dreams, I guess. It seems like nothing, except perhaps the ash, is going to landfill. So we can't ask you to improve that very much. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, the new contractors at the HWRCs, we're working really well with them at the minute, and they're coming up with some good ideas that they're looking to implement, particularly around reuse over some of the sites. So that's something we're going to look to trial to hopefully improve some of the rates around there. The recycling rates nationally, which we follow in Lincolnshire, have plateaued around the sort of the 42%. There are other schemes that are being brought forward by DEFRA for consultation about other recycling initiatives, and there's one currently around so waste electrical equipment, and that's something we're looking at for the future as well, because I think it is recognised by central government that things have stalled at that level. And with the food waste, that is something we're working on a partnership level to introduce that, and I think it will have a significant impact on our recycling rates.
Will the significant impact be 8%? Is that going to take us up to 50%? If not, how are we going to hit our targets? And say again in parentheses, Switzerland, Germany.
The 8% is what is currently predicted from the tonnage analysis that we have. And then, like I said, there are other initiatives coming up. We do struggle. It's not a local issue. There are lots of factors that influence the recycling rates, whether that's the economy, because people are buying less or buying cheaper things that are therefore maybe not as sustainable in the packaging, or whether it's the environment at the time and the growing season doesn't present as much green waste.
We have Nicole Hulton online who would like to come in at this point, and then I think Councillor McNally would also like to contribute. So if we can get Nicole online, we'll go to her first.
Thank you, Chair. I think Councillor Baxter raises a really interesting comment about our recycling rates plateauing and that being there nationally, because I think what we tend to do as a local authority, particularly the waste disposal local authority, we tend to focus on the very end of the process. And of course, further upstream in the process, there is an awful lot more that could be influenced. So by the time it comes to us, it's almost too late. And as wanting to be able to influence behavioural change in the consumer to not throw so much away, actually further upstream that there is an awful lot more that could be done to influence that. So, as I say, we focus on the end of the process, but actually the commercial consumer relationship has far greater impact potentially in here. So what the manufacturer produces and their ability to utilise recyclate or indeed packaging that's removed entirely from a process of goods, so that there isn't as much to throw away, or that what we do throw away we absolutely know has already been reutilised and then it is already recycled. So there are two parts of this relationship, and as I say, focusing on the end of the process is almost too late. What we need to be doing is working with the government and working with manufacturers, working with the big supermarkets, etc., to influence their behaviour about what packaging they provide and managing customer expectations about what that looks like. You know, the example of plastic bags being removed from supermarkets, phenomenal achievement, and wasn't particularly noisy. Everybody's gotten used to it. Everybody carries their own little recyclable bags about. Imagine if you applied that then to most packaging for food produce, and that's before you get into, you know, manufacturing.
Thank you very much for that. I've got a comment on that myself, but first I'll come to Councillor McNally.
Thank you, Chair. But to be honest, Nicole's picked most of that up, really. You know, when it does come to the whatever people put in the bin, that's what we have to deal with. And it's getting the message across that actually something can be reused, can be recycled in a different way. And also, if you look at some of the other authorities throughout the country, they actually, whether it's a unitary or a district, they actually collect things slightly differently. So sometimes you're comparing apples and pears, you're thinking, well, why has that authority got you know, what looks to be quite a high recycling rate, and we haven't in comparison. But they'll probably go out and collect textiles on the lorry every week, where we don't, it's still recycled, but we just don't have that information, that data from it. So, you know, you can look at it from this, but it is it's more of a complex story than what actually the paper makes out it to be.
Yes, thank you. Councillor Baxter, we'll come back to you. Raise the questions. Very interesting one.
Can I ask what the County Council or the Lincolnshire Waste Partnership is doing to promote composting, which seems like a good way to prevent waste getting into the waste stream in the first place?
At the minute, as far as I'm aware, the Waste Partnership isn't doing it, but there's nothing to stop the district councils from promoting it themselves.
The point that I wanted to raise went back to the one that you initiated, a very interesting part of the discussion, Councillor Baxter, and that was what is done. And I'm mindful both at the end that Nicole was talking about original equipment, that I believe, and I'm looking to Councillor McNally here, there are further regulation changes coming down the track which will further intensify the producer pays principle, which may affect the quality and the amount which goes into the stream, which is not recyclable, which are coming down the track. And the other thing I would just observe, that there are, as you have said, Councillor McNally, many, many differences in the way that waste collection authorities, and remember that's the districts in Lincolnshire, we are the Waste Disposal Authority, that the waste collection authorities do it. And I think it was a couple of weeks ago in the Times newspaper, there was an illustration of, it may have been Bristol, forgive me if it wasn't, but an urban centre where they were going down the route where the householder segregates very, very, very closely, much more closely than we do. And I think from memory there were 7 sacks or bins. There were various kind of reticule that stuff went into. I think it was 7. They achieved 37%. We're achieving just over 40. And again, it seems to be whatever you do, that kind of general area is where things top out at. And certainly in the district that I'm dual-hatted in, we hit that level a number of years ago, and we bounce around on it, and we take lots of initiatives, and we've won awards at North Kesteven for the initiatives we've taken. But actually moving that figure is very challenging. Perhaps you'd just like to come back on that business of regulation change.
Yeah, there's I think it's coming in 26 or 27. I'm not sure if it'll be delayed or not. You know, the food waste is definitely coming in now, but we're still waiting on the impacts of the other ones. But just picking back up on the point of you know, the compost and the districts can, you know, really as members, you know, regardless of whether it's a district, a county, whatever, as members, when we see people and they do struggle, we ought to just have a conversation with them and you know, sort of say, did you know you can do X, Y, and Z? You know, it's not down to an organisation or anything. It's down to the person, and if members individually can, you know, transform someone from dumping the grass waste to composting it, then, you know, that can only be a good thing.
Thank you for that. Very briefly, Councillor Baxter, because I'm very conscious of time.
Yeah, just to say that does sound ambitious, that 70 individual members would be able to influence a population of getting on for 1 million. Surely it would be far better for something corporate to come out about composting rather than leaving it for me to go and speak to my 3,000 neighbours.
Yes, but I'm also saying, as advocates for our community, which I presume you are, you will highlight what can be done, you know, to an individual. So, I mean, that it all starts from the single person and works its way up.
I'm going to take one more, and that's from the Vice Chairman, and then we're going to have to move on because we are significantly behind, and we have, don't forget, after our public items, we have a closed session item. Councillor Griggs.
Yeah, it seems to me that we discuss quite a lot of similar things every single time, and it's all right going on about individuals producing waste, and maybe we should buy more expensive products that can be reused. But we know we're in a time of economic hardships. We know that generally the economy is pushed by rampant consumerism and a throwaway culture, and a government that seems to quite frequently delay any legislation that will change the general basis of waste production. I think Nicole hit the nail on the head when she was talking about supermarkets and bags. Laws came in that changed the way that worked, and then consumer behaviour was changed accordingly. Without that, it's all right us sitting here and going, oh, can we get waste up? Can we reduce waste? The answer's no. Yeah, in Germany, if you buy beers, you take all your beer bottles back to the supermarket and you get money back, but that's legislated for. And I think, yeah, it's remiss of us to sit here every time it comes up and sit there and go, waste is bad. We need to reuse stuff. Look at the waste hierarchy. And again, I've raised many times, when I was younger, we used to go tip-walling. So people had thrown stuff away, it'd be pat tested, and you go get a new dishwasher, or kids ride an electric vehicle. So we can sit there and talk about reuse, but we as a county council, and I'm sure that's due to legislative reasons, don't encourage people to reuse what necessarily somebody else has used. So until we do things like that, we're just going to sit in a very similar situation. I hope that was succinct enough, Mr. Chairman.
Chris, final word.
Thank you, Councillor. You bring up a really good point about reuse, and that is something we are investigating at one of our HWRCs at Tattershall. That is something we really want to bring on this year and look at waste that people are bringing in that can be reused, potentially electronic equipment that we can pack test and make sure is safe, that we can then pass on to other consumers and prevent that from getting in the recycling stream and bringing it up the waste hierarchy.
Thank you very much indeed for that. I am going to draw this one to a close, but we always ask. Councillor McNally.
Yeah, just a quick
I keep
one.
trying to close this one down and people keep coming in, but it's a very important subject, so succinctly and briefly as ever.
Yes, regarding the HWRC, the reuse centre, when it does, you know, we're hoping to have it done latest probably July, August time, but when it is open, members of the committee are quite welcome to come and have a look.
Thank you. We will definitely take you up on that, and perhaps now would also be a good time, because I have mentioned it before, it would be very good for the energy from waste plant to be visited, and I'd very much like that to happen before too much more time elapses, because I think understanding that, I know that's happened in previous council periods, it hasn't happened to the best of my knowledge for members of this committee in this council period, and we have members who weren't serving in previous times. I think it's very important that we understand physically what happens. So if that could be put on the agenda as a matter of priority, I'd be very grateful if that could be arranged. Right. I am going to draw this one to a close now. Very, very good discussion as ever. So I move that the report be received by this committee, and that our satisfaction be recorded in relation to the performance achieved as well as assurances provided where needed. And crucially, I also ask that the comments from this discussion be forwarded to relevant officers and portfolio holders for their information and consideration. And it would be great if they could come back to us on some of the issues that have been raised. Any dissent to that? I am seeing none. Therefore, that matter is agreed. And we move to the final public item on our agenda today, which is item 9, the committee work programme. This item is on pages 95 to 100 of the agenda pack, and it enables the committee to comment on the contents of the work programme. It will be presented as ever by Chiara Hatzianu, Scrutiny Officer. Chiara, over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Now, to save us a little bit of time, I'm pleased to confirm there have been no changes since the publication of this report pack. So the only additions I'm making now to the work programme as of today is I'm adding an item around the proposed objectives for the strategic plan for the visitor economy in Lincolnshire to be submitted to this committee for consideration in one of our future meetings. I will liaise with officers directly to see where our agenda can accommodate for this paper to come. And also I've noted your request for the energy from waste plant visit to be conducted in the very near future. So this concludes my update to you. If officers are aware of any items coming up in the horizon, please do liaise with me directly to add them onto the work programme. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Any comments from the floor? Councillor Cook.
Thank you. I suppose one item I would quite like us to debate actually is the Lincolnshire Waste Partnership. I think a number of topics have come up today that I would be interested to learn more about the effectiveness and where the direction is of the partnership.
I'm sensing there may be support from that from the floor, and therefore that I'm sure will be noted, Chiara. Any other comments from the floor? Seeing none, in that case, I move that we note the report and approve the existing work programme and the additional items highlighted in discussion. Any dissent to that? No. In that case, that matter is agreed. So we now move briefly, because this is an exempt item, our next item on the agenda. So I have to formally move that since item 11 on the agenda contains exempt information, we will now need to vote on whether we go into private session. So I propose the following motion, that under section 100A(4) of the Local Government Act 1972, the public and press be excluded from the meeting for the following items of business on the grounds that it involves the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 3 of part 1 of schedule 12A of the Act. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by the Vice Chairman. All those in favour, please show. And that is carried. Thank you very much indeed. There are no abstentions and no one is voting against. So yes, that is agreed. We will now take a 10-minute break while the live stream is switched off. We will restart in 10 minutes' time. Can I just thank everybody who's been watching this morning outside the chamber on the live stream or at a later recording. You've been very welcome. You will be very welcome when we meet again. Thank you very much indeed. We will take a 10-minute recess.
Thanks, Chairman.